Hey, it's the Mad Queen. Welcome to the Queen's Lair. I actually just finished this guide today for beginners on the Roaring Tulpa. I focused on heroes that you get really early on in the beginning of the game and you can use and keep building out so that you can consistently go through stage 12. I have put this together, and this is really an overview of the boss. The stages for the boss are pretty much the same from stage 1 to stage 12. The only difference is when you get to, I believe it's stage 6 or 7, something else does get added and it gets a little bit harder. But if you follow this guide, you're going to be able to use all of this to help you from the very beginning of Roaring Tulpa up until you get to the stage 12 of the Roaring Tulpa. So I know I'm kind of covering stuff. So I'll move this while I read. The Roaring Tulpa has 5 different abilities. Fissure grants 1 Tulpic Fervor stack when under 50% at the start of each round. If this character has 4 stacks of Tulpic Fever at the start of the turn, it launches a bonus attack with Fissure, dealing true damage to all enemies. Armor Break deals damage to an enemy and applies defense down for 2 turns. Countering Blow counterattacks every 6 enemy attacks, meaning after every 6 times you attack the boss, it's going to counterattack. Hulking Fist deals damage to an enemy. The damage scales with this character's defense. Apocalypse launches an attack on all enemies, ignoring 50% of the target's defense, and it applies defense down to the target for 2 turns. When you get into the main boss, there's going to be 2 Moonrock guards as well. There's one on the left and there's one on the right. Their main ability, or their first ability, is going to do the same thing. It's called Slingshot, and it deals damage to an enemy. On the left guard, it has Reckless Charge, deals damage to all enemies, and applies defense down for 2 turns. The Moonrock guard on the right has Counterattack Boost, which is going to give a 200% damage boost to the boss's next ability-based counterattack. And a few little tips that I have down here. Also, if you are interested in seeing these guides outside of this video, I will be putting them in my Discord and also sharing them in the Ace Official Discord channel as well. But as far as tips go, if you're dying a lot, you want to kill the right guard before attacking the main boss. Kill him and then go for the boss. Because 200% extra damage for his counterattack, which the lower his health is, the more he starts to counterattack. So it's going to do a ton of damage, and you want to really try to negate that as much as possible. The Tulpa boss damage is based off of defense. To lower the damage you receive or that your team receives from the boss, you want to apply the negative effect defense down to it. There are 2 different versions of defense down. There's a small version which decreases defense by 30%, and there's a larger version where it's going to decrease it by 50%. Of course, if you can use a hero, or if you have access to a hero that has the minus 50%, that's going to be better than the 30, but make sure just in general you are using defense down, because if not, this boss is going to do quite a bit of damage to you. Buffs including counterattack, defense up, attack up, immunity, and or invincibility will benefit your allied heroes, and you really want to make sure that on stage 12 your heroes have a minimum of 122 speed. This is going to allow you to go before the boss. The boss's speed is somewhere between, it's either 120 or 121. So I'd put 122 just to be safe because I was not 100% sure, but it is very close to one of those 2 things. And if you start to build up before you get to stage 12 and you're making your heroes have at least 122 speed, you won't have to focus on changing your speed tuning a bunch as you climb and climb and climb. Next, this is really just a visual guide for people that aren't necessarily on YouTube, I guess. And you can get a lot of information from all of these pages for the most part, but this is the best beginner's team I could come up with that you can use from stage 1 into stage 12. And a couple of these heroes can also be used even farther past that point. I wanted to really focus on heroes that I knew were easy for beginning players to get their hands on and to actually build out. So I will go over all this, and firstly, I do want to mention over here, I do have hero substitutions. I have Garel and Bella in here as legendary heroes. The only reason they're in there is because Garel is in your beginner summons, and Bella is the fusion hero that anybody can get. So these two heroes are going to be not extremely hard for you to acquire in general. So first on the team, I have Connor. He provides support to his team by applying shields, healing, attack up, and increasing the overall attack of his allies. His passive trait, once it's ascended, just increases attack overall by an additional 20%, which is pretty big, especially for beginner players. Auroch provides AoE damage that helps the team clear the 2 stages before the boss quickly, and he's also able to heal himself. Zac provides additional AoE attacks to help get to the boss stage faster, and Azrina provides damage to the main boss. Below, I'm in the way again, I do have all of their stats here. I did do this testing on a later game account, but I tried to make sure that the stats I had were not super amazing. So these stats here are not anywhere close to what I can actually put on them. And it's actually more aimed around people that are farming stage 12 of dungeons consistently. You don't need to do a ton of speed tuning on this team. The only thing you need to make sure that you do is make sure Connor is first. He needs to be the first one on the team. And as far as replacing, I have put here when you can replace them. Eventually, to make the team faster, because this team will be able to consistently farm stage 12, but if you want it to be faster, you can replace Zachary. He's going to be the weakest person on this team, and you can put in any of these heroes. Of course, not Flarence though. Flarence would be switched out for Connor only. And it's not really necessary, but if you do get Flarence, you may as well. Whenever you go to replace Zachary, I would replace Zachary with either Garel or Bella first. It depends on whoever you happen to get first, either Garel through the summons or Bella through the fusion. But if you replace them and you keep Azrina in for a while, you're going to be able to farm at a much faster pace. And then later on, switch out Azrina for Garel. And now you have a team that can take you through the first 2 stages of hell as well, because you can use Connor and Auroch there. I wanted to come up with a guide that was going to be the most efficient as far as your resources as well. I don't want you to have to waste a ton of resources on heroes. I also will say, you can see my Azrina is only level 50. You don't need to take her higher than that. And you can see my Zac is actually level 60. You don't really need to take him past level 50 either. As far as Auroch and Connor though, they are both excellent. You don't need, honestly, either of them to be level 60 for you to do stage 12. But, of course, it will be easier. It'll make it a little bit faster. And if you do want to take those 2 heroes into the first 2 stages of hell, you will want to make both of them level 60. And here is a, let me move myself again. This is covering all stages 1 to 16, and it's the heroes I most recommend for you to use in the Roaring Tulpa. The boss and all the waves before the boss are wood element. Use fire element heroes to gain the affinity bonus and deal more damage. For a faster clear time, use heroes that deal AoE damage in order to clear the 2 waves before the boss quickly. And you're going to receive less damage from the boss by applying decreased defense to it, like I mentioned earlier. I will say, though, if you are using an AoE hero, you only want to use one, and that's solely just so you can clear through those first 2 stages as fast as possible so you can get to the boss. But single target damage dealers like Garel and Bella that I was talking about earlier are going to be a really good bet for you. They deal a lot of damage, and it's almost like they were made for this boss, really. But if you have Cyrus, Cyrus will work here too. She was the fusion hero before Bella. If you did fuse her and you have her, she's a great choice to use here. Especially if you're low on resources and you can't really fuse Bella right now. But if you can use Bella instead, she is going to be better than Cyrus is. And you don't have to have her quite as ascended either for her to do a really good job. So these are all the DPS units I recommend you use. These are not the only ones in the game you can use. There are many others, but these are the ones that I best recommend. And I try to, when I was showing you the previous part of this guide, I want to recommend heroes to you that you're not just going to use in one place. There are a lot of heroes in the game that are only good for one thing in the game, and those are the heroes that you don't want to put a lot of resources into until you're really far or late into the game, because they are niche heroes and they're only meant for niche things within the game. That's going to be heroes like Thomas here. Thomas is awful everywhere except for the Roaring Tulpa. He's really good in the Roaring Tulpa. His whole kit is basically for this, but I would not recommend that you use him anywhere else. And I have Hitoshi in here because a lot of beginners get him. You could also use Zatlux. I didn't put him in here. I'm not sure why, but Zatlux can be another one used in here that is going to be another really good option. Of course, the reason I didn't focus on putting them in the main team is because they're not fire affinity. They are the same affinity as the boss, so they're not going to get an extra bonus on damage on the wood boss, because fire burns wood. You're going to get a bonus on how much damage you can do. And then down here I have the supports. If you get Florence and Brand, you will not need any other support heroes for this dungeon specifically. And those 2 heroes are excellent to be used in a lot of places. If you don't know, you can actually get a free copy of Brand from doing all of your beginners challenges and quests. There is a free copy of him as a reward after collecting so many points. But there is Zitlin here, Jocasta, Blackhorn, Mythasia, Hassel, Connor, which you saw in the first team, Hakron, and Rodira. Whenever I was making this guide, like I said, I really wanted to focus on heroes that were going to help you get there quickly and also efficiently. Plus, 2 of the heroes on that main team that I was mentioning can be used into the hell stages as well, which are going to be a really big help. And by the time that you're able to consistently farm stage 12, you should definitely have at least 1 Bella. I would hope you would have more than that, but you should have at least 1 Bella if you don't have a Garel that you can plug into that team. And you're going to be able to use Bella to be able to go into stages 15 and 16. And that's going to be the same with Brand. Whenever you get him, you're going to need him for that. Florence is going to be a really good option to take you into 15 and 16, and as well as Garel. If you're wondering, should you summon for Garel, I would say yes, at least just to get 1 copy of him in the beginner's summons. Now, if you're interested in seeing the teams that I showed you before, I will include those runs now. And I do have 2 different ones where I have Bella substituted in for Zachary, and the team that you can see here. I will also have the stats for Bella posted on the screen during her run. If you guys have any additional comments or questions, anything you'd like to add, leave that in the comments below. Also, if you're a new player or an experienced player, join my growing Discord community. It's an excellent way for beginners to ask for advice and experienced players to give advice. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.